Thank you very much. I'm Peter Adam Wiesner, Head of App Technology at Craft. I'm one of the founding engineers at Craft, so I was there still from the beginning and saw how it grew and grew in the time. And I will talk about how it entered the agentic era, like how it became AI native in the last 2 months. I don't know about you, but this December, like 2025, it was really interesting. While everything was all jingle and all bells, the X era, like the X ecosystem, like previously Twitter, was blowing up. Like a lot of people who I'm really following started to shut out and give signals that, okay, previously we talked about that AI modeling and agents are a little bit slow, but now they are getting there. So Andrew Karpathy, who was like a podcast in November, just in December, said that he feels a little bit behind, that he needs to learn a lot about this new thing because Opus 4.5 was released in November and actually changed the field of agentic engineering. Peter Steinberger also released really good blog post, what you need to know about agentic engineering. So it was really, really cool, but a little bit terrifying also. Like if agents are starting to code, that what am I? How should I define myself as an engineer, of an engineering manager here? So I'm here a little bit to help you show the way, because that's the thing that we went through with Craft in the last 2 months, and show you that we kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully it's not coming from a train. So first of all, a survey. How many of you are building Legos in freestyle? Meaning that you're not following a manual, but you should spread out a pile of Lego and build your dreams. So this is me, 2, 3, 4. Oh, awesome, a lot of builders here. When I was a child, I played a Lego with my brother a lot. We always use this freestyle Lego thing because we were a little bit like poor in the family, and we also tried to like take the Lego catalog and build something from it. There was 2 roles here. The first one, and we always switched between the roles. The first role was actually coming up with the set that you want to build. The second role was actually finding the pieces in the pile, finding the right pieces, the right pattern, the exact color that you want, and deliver it to the person who is doing the thing. Agentic engineering, like the agents in this whole ecosystem, is actually the second role here. Yep. So, but when we're talking agentic engineering, it's a kind of new term. Previously, it was called vibe coding. It's a bad term, actually. Vibe coding was like 1 year ago when the agentic model was not actually there. And basically, it means that people started to trust the AI model too soon, started to do products without understanding what's behind them and how they actually work. It was like a lot of burnout. There was like Samsung who leaked security API keys in a GitHub repo, and a lot of bad bad things. They say that it's like we are not that cooked. It's not a problem to have agents out there. But when the models in December got there, actually a new form of vibe coding emerged, which is actually agentic engineering. And the agentic engineering is when you not trust the agent to do everything, but you orchestrate the agents to help you to reach new capabilities and do much more than you did previously. Same intent, a little bit different level of trust, a different lifespan. Like vibe coding is that I just wanted to do this and send it out, but agentic engineering is really good to nurture a product in multiple cycles and release also. And of course, there was a different level of models that you can use here. So I'm here to talk about Craft and how it's working with agentic engineering, so Craft and agentic engineering, and all of the combination of it. So previously you mentioned, like Piotr, you mentioned that you already knew Craft, but for somebody who doesn't know that on the surface, Craft is a document editing tool. You can gather your notes into a document, collect them in folders, tag them actually. But under the hood is actually a game engine. A lot of capabilities are there for the users, like multiple blocks to express yourself, image blocks, canvas like whiteboard, tables, databases that you can do there, and the user can combine them. And one of the blocks that we wanted to play for a long time is AI, actually. Since like 2 years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago, we were the first one who actually integrated an assistant before Notion, actually, in the application. We try to find how this AI block can fit into the product. we used it for finding out really good cover images for your documents based on your title. We try to find really good backgrounds for your documents. And also the assistant recently in the November release became much more powerful, but actually running an agentic loop and doing things and reading things, collecting for you on your behalf also. You can try out Craft on iOS, Mac, Vision OS, Web, Windows. A lot of platforms are there, so you can just give it a try. Beside the AI building block that I mentioned here before, is actually really good to see that Craft wanted to incorporate AI not just into the product, but also our workflows and processes. So we've started to generate code right from the beginning with ChatGPT 3.5 to help finish methods, just find some like snippets that we can do that. We didn't trust that because we saw that it can hallucinate a lot. With O3, it got much better, so we could actually ship one feature. If you ever used on-device folder in the Craft, that was actually wrote vibe coded back the time with O3. And just a fun fact that we also like played a little bit with local models. So in the Craft application, you can actually try out Llama and DeepSeek to try out that what happens when you can use AI on the airplane without with any other network connection. When we played with this lot of ChatGPT O3 things, a lot of interesting intent meta information emerged from it. That was the time when we actually first founded our first agentsmd. A lot of rules, how we want to code, how views should develop, how localization should happen, how models should be persisted on the disk, and it can be used in the ChatGPT projects. I don't know if you still ever use that one. And the fun fact is that we go so deep that we actually use TensorFlow to build one of our classifiers for identifying what the code editor block, which is one of the capability that you can add to a Craft document, what type of language it is based on the content that you have here. And the really important thing that, okay, this is good, early experiences is a really nice thing to have, but it's not a must to actually start agentic coding and agentic engineering. The first thing is what is actually enabled it, that the CEO, the founders, and the leadership, like myself, understand what it actually means and understand the trade-offs that you actually do when you do agentic coding. It's not always like fun thing. You know that there is still hallucination. There are still limits, but you actually prepared for it. So once the leadership and the CEO understand, this is actually, I want to emphasize this because we saw a lot of companies struggling because the CEO, the CTO doesn't understand it, doesn't trust it, and fears it. That's like one of the first steps that you need to understand, that the leadership must be bought into the whole process. And then next you need curious people, curious and flexible people, because what I mentioned before, this identity crisis, we'll go through all of them, and you need to understand that some of the engineers' life will change. Actually, if you remember, Chris Lattner mentioned, I think in the post, that the biggest thing against the Swift adoption was actually the Objective-C guy, who thought that they don't want to have another language because they don't want to have all of their knowledge resetted and started anew. And you need to avoid to have this also in your company. The next thing that you need for agentic engineering is time. For us, we were in the lucky situation that we could actually spend 1 month to spend all the time to learn agentic engineering, looping, what we can do with it, experiment with it, because we stopped the releases and we say that we won't do anything for 1 month till everybody understands and builds out their own tool to actually accompany the whole process. And also, this is the money part. You need a Max Plan, an Opus 4.6, and the Codex 5.4 to start it. You should not start with Sonnet. You should not for anything less, and you should not settle anything below this. All of the things need the cultural change needs to be supported. So that means that the CEO and the leadership at Craft directly supported each individual to become an AI native person. AI knowledge, there was AI knowledge sharing session every almost every day. This is a 30 minutes session where everybody can learn what they learn about communicating with the agent, how it can be done, what interesting thing they learned. There was also every 2 days there was like a platform level conversation, 1 hour with the CEO and the leadership, defining impossible goals that you can do during that week. Impossible goals meaning that you had like a picture of what you can do during 1 week, and you need to extend it much, much further. That means that, for example, you do that, like it was asking to me, Peter, how many bugs you can do in 1 week? I said, 10. And Balin said, okay, let's do 100. And said, okay, let's go it. And eventually, I had 2 days, so I could manage 40 bugs. Eventually do that. I will show you how, actually. But this is really good because it demolishes all the boundaries that you think that what is actually achievable with AI. And the second week, okay, Peter, what is the most important thing that you want to do and you are afraid to do that? I say that making sure that opening a document is much, much faster, because we use a special DB called Realm, and we need to wait till it's open. So there was like a waiting time, and document opening was sluggish. And Balin said that, okay, let's do that. And 2 days after a lot of struggling and a lot of trying, and I will show you what tools we used. Actually, we could do that, and now the document opening is actually fast. And the third one is about developing a new feature, but that's not on me. That's one of our teammates, but I will show you how we do that. And also, there is like nowadays every week there is an AI buddy meeting where there is like a pair of you that you are paired with inside the company, and you sit down and talk a lot about how you do things. Mine is actually Bartek, from one of the founders of this meetup. And it's really good to share what kind of like skills do you use, etc. If you want to support a cultural change, talking a lot is really helpful, but also developing some tools. So that's why we developed Craft Agents, and a really good tool that actually builds on all of the things that I talked previously, what we learned from agenting coding. Is basically, it's not that like it can be swapped with Cloud Code here, but actually it's built on the Cloud Agent SDK, or one of them is actually built on the was built on the Cloud Agent SDK. But we added a lot of system prompts, how tools should be handled, how MCP should be called, a lot of things to make everything easier. So if you are new to the whole thing and you want to start, Craft Agents is a really good thing to start from. And it will help you to become AI native. But what is AI native? Again, like Peter, you're talking about agentic engineering, but you suddenly starting to talk about AI nativeness. Basically, it's really like one sentence. It's not about like I drop and threw AI on the problem, but I built my whole processes on agents. That means that since January 4, only agents are writing codes inside Craft, and we can still ship every 2 weeks. There is no slope, there is no issues, hopefully still, and everything is all right. So I would not be so confident talking about it if we didn't have already 4 or 5 releases with this process. So when you started, like the AI nativeness is like an evolution. You started with prompt engineering, adding personas to the agents, and you evolved into context engineering, where you started to throw files and a lot of like tools to the mixture. And now we are talking about harness engineering, basically, which means that you need to find the process and orchestration of agents to keep them alive and continuously running. I mean, hopefully not, but I maybe have 6 agents running right now and won't draw my battery, but it's really nice to have this. And the whole thing, and the thing that if you choose this one and you are an engineer, then congratulations, you are promoted. You are an engineering team lead. Again, because you have now a team of agents that you can orchestrate and help them with all of the plus signs, like you can do more, and also the negative side, then you need to improve them also. The positive side, that they don't have feelings, so you don't need to work with that. But you actually became like, when this happened, On the first stand-up, I told the people around me that, okay, now you are team leads. And it is really good to see that every time, every stand-up, I can come back to this one and say that, okay, your agent is doing something wrong, do a one-on-one with them. I mean, compound them. I will talk about it, what this actually mean. And actually, it was like kind of funny because they became now in the situation that I have. They need to read a lot of things. I had to read a lot of pull requests. They need to read a lot of code that the cloud agents are writing. And they need to also like summarize the finding to me like an executive summary that they previously they just like threw the pull request to me. Now need to understand what the agent's actually doing and formulate in the way that I can also understand. So a lot of management things happening here. Our stand-ups grew from 30 minutes to 1 hour actually to incorporate a lot of learnings. We don't talk about delivery. We don't talk about schedule. We're always talking about how you work with the agent, what did you learn, what issues we have, and how we can solve it, what tricks we can use. Talking about tricks that now that you are a manager, you are not writing the code, but you are responsible for it. Still, there is no law that the AI can actually be held responsible to do the code that you write, so you are responsible for the code that you are actually writing. You treat it like as a junior engineer. A lot of things that if you were any manager here, no manager, okay, I will try to. Future manager, okay, yeah, that's a good one. Actually, like, when I trained a lot of junior engineers, and everything that I list here is actually true for junior engineers. So like, first of all, you won't ask a junior engineer a task that you cannot do. That's really stupid things. You need to always give an agent a task that's below your intelligence, and because that's the way that you can actually verify the output and be confident and gain confidence that it's actually working. You need to always plan together, so you need to sit down, talk with a lot, like, have you thought about that? Have you did that? Actually, same with a junior engineer. And after it's done, you need to show some proofs that it's actually working, like, have you written a unit test? I can see your pull request, it's not doing what you're actually doing. A lot of confrontation and screaming with the agents here. And actually, you need to read every pull request. We still read every pull request that's going in. We don't do the Peter Steinberger thing of like to blindly accepting thing. He doesn't do either. That's like a marketing thing, but actually it's really important thing to do. Some things that you cannot do with a junior engineer, you cannot clone it and you can't restart it because HR will find you actually, and you can kill them too, but that will be too much. Then police will find you actually. It's all important because all the things that you have here is actually building trust with the agents. When you have there, we can go with the loop. The loop is the most important thing that you can do with the agent before parallelization. It's actually that you will start with planning, that meaning that you always start with entering plan mode. You write down to Cloud Code and Codex, enter plan mode. We're supporting that actually. And go through all of the things, see the whole change that you want to do at once. Don't go, because if you forget to do that, everything will go sideways and it will try to hallucinate things and search for things, a lot of things. This magic word, enter plan mode, will do all the things. You will verify everything that you have here, and after that, you will ask the agent to execute the whole thing. Building is simple. You can use Xcode build MCP or just basic CLI tools to build the code for a mobile developer. Then you manually have to run the test for UI thing. It's hard because you need to actually click the whole things, but it can be actually funny because you are now the critic of the work. You can say that this is not good, there is a glitch summit, please fix the padding, etc. It's really nice. But for unit test, you can actually automate that. Run the unit test, if there is an error, please fix it, and the agent can do the loop for you. Then after that, if there is a multiple step, then you need to update your progress MD like a file, a markdown file that you say that, okay, this is done. Don't think about it. You don't need to work around it. Move on to the next thing. And finally, you need to do some compounding. Ask the agent, what did you learn from the previous step? Every session that you are not asking this question from the agent is, now I won't say that wasted, but a wasted opportunity, definitely. There are some tools that you hear, but every time in this loop, you need to make sure that there are some CLI tool involved and some files that you can actually count on. And once you have a loop, then you can, after the planning, just like with a junior engineer, you can leave it there working, and you can start a new one, and that's where parallelization goes in, because you don't want to be the person who's just sitting there and waiting for the agents to finish. Actually, you can start another bug fix, you can start another feature, you can start another things. What works for us is actually that if there's a hard thing, like developing a feature or doing a big refactor, we can only do maximum 2 or 3 in parallel. But there is a bug fix, you can do like 4 to 6 agents in parallel. And if you have some like really big tedious tasks like finding all the memory leaks that a closure return cycle can actually cause, you can spawn more than, I spawn 25 agents who run for 10 minutes through the whole code base in horizontal mode and found all the memory leaks that we actually have in the application. And also they're really interesting that I think you heard about that you can also create and spawn agent teams called swarms in some ways. Basically, you can define some roles for the agents. So you are the designer, you are the stability person, you are the engineer, and they can work together, actually as peer, to find a solution for you. For example, I had really good agent teams that I will talk about, I think, in one of the examples. But you can see that time is not the bottleneck anymore, but focus it is. So you need to really prioritize what will be the parallel things that you will do. But eventually, like everything is good here, don't forget that code is free. You can easily ask the agent to rewrite the solution. I had a rasterization problem, like one of our databases were not scrolling fast enough. It was laggy. I rewrote it 5 times in 2 days, and there was no wasted time. There was no bad feeling. It's really good that actually you can distinct yourself from the solution, because as engineers, I don't know how about you, but for me, if you're doing something, you are trying to defend a little bit from like critics at the end, like you won't be that critical with your work. But now that this problem that writing the code is outside of your body with the agent, you can actually be much more critical and ask for much more things, and actually will increase the quality of your work. One thing that you mentioned here that I want to mention here, not just rewriting, not just that you can write a lot of unit tests, but you can also rewrite the above layer of your components that you want to actually write. So for one case, I had to test our sync scenarios, and the sync was building on the whole application, but I could ask Claude to actually rewrite the whole thing into a really nice layer, and it was really good to see actually. One key thing, which is like the best tool that I found here, is actually asking Claude to build dashboards for your feature, to understand how it's working under the hood, and making sure that you understand and have confidence that it's actually working. So that's why I wrote it here that HTML is the new print, because I usually create an HTML file to understand how the things are working. So we are in the process of rewriting our DB database layer to a new solution, and we have like this V5, which is the new new boy in the town. And it was really curious that, okay, we already went through the agent that it will do all of the ACID and requirement that the DB needs to be ready to replace RAM that we're currently having. But it was really good to see all of the cases that actually working. What you can see here on the left side is actually the cases, and you can see how it's performing between cases. Like you can see that the red one is where your DB solution is performing worse than Realm or SQLite here. And the good thing is here that you don't have a print like just a linear thing, but you can actually go into the case and you see what is taking so much time, so you can structure your dashboard and have a lot of things. Yeah, we use a write append log here, so it's really interesting. Other interesting that I brought here, I spoke 2 days with Claude about how to increase performance monitoring the application, and it was like almost I don't know how to gather what topics we talked about, so I asked him to actually create a mind map for me. So it is a mind map. You can check out all the topics that I talked about it, and you can select it, and it will show you the actual part of the conversation that you can relive and go back. So actually, this is a form of Wikipedia that you can share. This is like a one HTML file that you can share with everybody. Then other thing that you need to do, I've already talked with some of you in the kitchen area, is actually knowing your agent. There is multiple things that you can choose from. I'm talking about Cloud Code because we choose Cloud Code. It's vibe. We thought that we are aligned with the Cloud Code a little bit better. We understood how it's working. We started to get there. There's also a solution for Codec. It's a very opinionated field, and everybody has the thing. My ask here, my suggestion is here to actually start with one, and after that you can mix multiple things in the soup that you can do there. And don't forget, like a lot of people like to do dangerously skip permission, the YOLO mode. Don't do that. You can use a lot of permission, overwrite read permission to allow not to press enter all the time. But we try to be a little bit mindful here, not to like YOLO all the thing here. And insight is a really important part of the whole things. We also like to commit the plans that we are doing. Everything can be found actually in your user directory under cloud and plans. You can just, it's a markdown file that you can copy into the repo, which helps you share plans between devices and people. We also commit all of the skills and all the agents, a little bit more about it, into the repo, to make sure that we are building a culture and a rule set. Because the intent layer is one of the most important things that we can have here. It's a meta layer that actually Cloud sees. This is the thing that you actually, like Cloud sees from your repo. We use CloudMD to define the general principles that how you code, how your project should be structured, and how you can do processes like what should I do when I want to plan, how should I start planning, how should I do testing, how should I do building. We use CloudMDs inside the repos, the sub-repos, to define some additional guidelines if you're working with the sync layer, if you're working with the API layer. We use skills, this is one of the most important things, to define how to work inside the repo. Somebody comes into your repo, it's like one of your big job as an agentic engineer to allow others to work inside your repo, and for that, skills is more important. Pull request review skill was the first thing that I created on January 5th. Making sure that 5 agents will spin on every pull request, checking the pull request for code quality, stability, edge cases, performance, memory leaks, etc. Found a lot of things, and we gained a lot of confidence to make sure that pull request is actually merged. A lot of people, like from the backend team, who came and did some UI work on the app team's repo, say that okay, that is really good, and like this harness is really good. I was feel like welcomed. I could contribute to code base, and your job is to make sure that people have this feeling that they want to actually contribute to your code base. And we have also some like, beside, this is the normal thing that you can see on Twitter. Beside that, we also have solution documents, like one pager, maximum 200 line code, 200 lines markdown files that will describe a small part of the architecture that code can like trigger, scan, understand how styling working in the application, how the layouting working in the application, but it doesn't need to load all the time. Linters are not really important because, as you know, that agents can hallucinate, they can approach a problem every time differently, but linters are always deterministic. So use linters for the rules that you can actually formulate. Don't use optional bool chaining, for example, for equality checking. You can add it there, and it will be ensured that the agent will be using. Compounding, one of the most important things, is actually after every bug fixing pull request, we sit down with the team, and we say that, okay, what we can learn from here. We will check the pull request that caused the issue. We check the process that the agent and also the agentic engineer went through to understand what was the issue, and we creating either a linter, a solution document, a skill update, or a CloudMD update from it. So I just wanted to say that, summarize something from here, from the example that we have with, is like a bug fixing session. If you are not doing agentic engineering, probably this will be the case that you will do the first time. When you touch agenting, and I suggest you, because it's a small scope, always start with plan mode, for the reasons I already talked before. Why? Verify. Don't accept anything. Okay, really good, nice, you have a hypothesis. Let's put debug prints everywhere. And I will run the code, I will recreate the reproduction step that you say to me, I will paste everything to the agent, and it can decide that, oops, it was not the case, or it was really good, let's go and iterate on it a little bit. And write all the helpers that you can do here. Okay, this is all nice, a lot of theory, agentic engineering 101, but what is the real life project we actually shipped? of course, as I mentioned, we started with bug fixing. I told about the velocity. We fixed complex ones. We fixed large amount of bugs already, where we have like a backlog of 50 bugs that was related to styling, how you can style a document. One of the team members could finish it eventually and ask for more. Never happened before that we could actually reach the end of the backlog in one project. We could do some tricky one, and really good that we actually could do multi-platform bug fixes. That was like a sync issue that started on the client side, but because the backend repo had a really good harnessing time, I was confident enough to fix in their repo. It was a small fix, but it eventually fixed the bug. I'm not saying that we could not fix it manually if we are doing the old way. The problem was that I could just ask the founders and the CEO that I can do it, and it won't derail the delivery, won't cause risk for the delivery that we have here. And you actually can do just things like one of the bugs was about copy-pasting HTML into the craft application. And we used WebView, a WebKit WebView for that because we used GS turndown wrapper, which has really good rule set, but it was slow. It took 1 or 2 seconds to paste an HTML because it was converted to Markdown, and the Markdown was converted into the block that we use here. And I say that, okay, what am I doing? This is the old Peter. What is the new Peter would do? Rewrite the whole thing in Swift. Actually, and it was like 2 days, everything became much faster, and as an addition, all of the import that we use for Markdown got better. Well, the next thing was actually a request for users. We use iOS Math for LaTeX rendering, and it was missing a lot of feature because we haven't updated in 5 years. Eventually, the author abandoned it. And we say that, okay, let's do it. We added more than 100 new symbol parsing to this iOS library, 92 new commands, and we eventually made it feature parity with the Catex JavaScript library. And all of the things was important that we build on solid foundations, because like we use SIP-soup for the HTML to Markdown rendering, and we use iOS Math, which is like a bulletproof LaTeX rendering. We wrote a lot of unit tests, but all of the domain that we used here was actually well known for the agent. But you need to find a loop. And I talked about the loop, a lot of things. You can find a loop here. This is a sample up that I built in 10 minutes from the ground up. On the left, you see the HTML. In the middle, you see the old turndown.js. And the right one is actually the new native thing. And you can see that you can find the loop and create a lot of test cases here. What you can see here is the agent actually deep linking into the application, triggering the release. There is a code that will put the turndown and the Markdown, the new Markdown string into the pasteboard, and the agent can read it. So I could leave it for 1 hour. It could fix all of the issues that we have here. What you see is actually not an issue here, but it's stopped, because there is a difference between the two one. It actually is an improvement because we haven't supported zero jaunt with MOEs, compound MOEs, and now we are doing so. There's a difference here. This is the most harder case because for context rendering, the agents cannot see that good enough. So these small symbols, they cannot differentiate. There was cases where we can actually use it, but it was hard to do. So I compensated with creating a lot of context that we have here. But this is the big thing. I don't know, like in the ROS release, we released collection gallery. Collections are databases like in Notion, where you can organize your objects, tag them, group them, filter them, sort them. And this was the first major feature that was completely developed by agents. Zero code written. And the most thing that I want you to take away from here, that's planning. Planning is really important. We spent 4 hours to verify the, I think, like 1,000 line of Markdown file. That was actually the plan. And it's really good to see all of the things, how it will integrate into the whole craft ecosystem. It's not simple. You need to account for copy pasting. We need to be able to render the whole thing into PDF. You need to make sure that it's saved into a disk. You need to make sure that it's backward and forward compatible. It was really good to see everything into one Markdown file, make some adjustment, and say that, okay, let's go. Actually, not Cloud Code did that, but Codex, because Codex is much better in doing a longer running agentic work. But we could do the 70% of the work in 1 day instead of 1 week or multiple weeks. And the first time in the, I won't say in the craft workflow, we had finally time to refine it. So we didn't arrive to the release on the release week, but it was really good to see actually what's happening and how we can tweak it. We had time to dog food internally. Everybody is dog fooding in the craft application. Everybody is using every time. And now they could actually try out. And now that the another founder, Victor, teased it, we did the same thing with Kanban. So Kanban is arriving to craft, and it was also agentic coded. And as a last, I tried to collect a lot of interesting examples. So you saw SDKs, bugs, features, improvements, but I wanted to show you some tooling that we improved on. VMCTL was an issue where we could actually not debug Mac application on all their devices because you cannot make the Xcode build the whole project on Ventura or Monterey. So we came up with a solution to work with the Apple virtualization framework, when we could ask Claude to actually SSH into a virtual machine where you actually shipped and you connected your derived data on your host machine, that you build your craft application with your normal Xcode. It was mounted to the guest virtual machine, and you can actually run there, and you make sure that with an LLDB remote server, you can actually debug the whole thing. It was like magic. You could ask Claude to actually provision the whole virtual machine. You didn't have to do anything manually. When I was in Skyscanner, and I had to do it with Packer, it was a tedious work. But the first thing that you need to make sure that Claude can actually SSH into the virtual machine, and everything was actually settled for you. And the last thing that I want you is a personal thing. It's really important for me. Is actually, but I had a pet project that actually I could push halfway through, but actually I was tired. I could not spend any more nights on it. Craft is a UIKit application where we use Mac Catalyst and iOS on the native side, but it's a manual framework. No auto layout, no Swift UI, sorry. And actually, we could not use the preview feature to iterate really fast on the UI, which code is actually living in the main target. So if you wanted to change a color in your application, you had to build the whole main application again, and it was really slow. So I thought that why cannot build a hot reload solution for that? There are ones with dynamic linking, etc., but this is actually a really cool feature when you actually swizzling out layout and UIKit features, the compiled code with an interpreter. So what you will see here is actually, when I transfer that, we have this simple page which you shipped with application. You need to compile it once, but you can actually later on change, for example, with agentic engineering, the code behind it. You can send it to the simulator with the socket, and you need to retrigger the layouting. And actually, after that, everything will change, so hopefully it works. I cut it a little bit because Xcode MCP tries to use 5 seconds delays, but yeah, so this is basically that you can do. Hopefully it will be reach the final stage and I can open source it, which we are doing actually pretty frequently, both craft agents and the beautiful mermaid, which is like a diagram rendering solution, is open source because now we have time for that. We want to pay back for the community. For Swift, the first version was really easy. We just had to also compile the whole Degra.js. It's like a DEG graph rendering layouting algorithm to Swift, which was like a 2-3 days. It was. I thought that it was easy. We could generate a lot of tools. You can see here that basically like it's a screenshot from a tool where you can render all of the graphs. It was really important to see that. And also we created a lot of scripts that actually you can do to open source a library. So I created an agent with a persona that you are a really critic developer to make sure that you list everything that would prevent me to release this to the whole community. Say that everything is really nice, but the local packages are hard-coded to relative paths, and I cannot use it. So that was really interesting finding here. Beautiful Mermaid 1.0 was much more harder. It was like 2 or 3 weeks to do that because the EL key, which is like developed by the university and new layout engine that we are using, is from 800 files, and we had to make sure that we can actually transcode it. And I can talk a lot about it, so find me in the break, and we can talk about it. But I I try to share you all of the theories here. I try to share you all the success here, but we need to also talk about the downsides here. Not everything can be solved by agents. As you can see with the Beautiful Mermaid, it was 2-3 weeks, still faster than myself writing all of the code. I don't know whether you saw this compacting is amnesia. They're basically like Claude finding the bug. Okay, I found the bug, let's fix it. Compounding, okay, where was I? Where I am, what is the code base? And starting again, it's like tearing my hair out. You are depending on Claude and Codex working all of the time. So you can, of course, write the code, and I still sometimes did it, one of the 2 times, but there's an outage for Claude code, which is happening nowadays every day at 5 p.m. somehow. Then you are stuck there, and you can switch to Codex. So that's why when you learn mixing the agents, you need to switch to Codex, and when it's done, you can go back to Claude or vice versa. There is also high entry cost here, like $200 if you are a freelancer at home, kids. It's not easy to do that, but if you for craft, every engineer got max credit and really pushing to use as much token as possible. Like last week, I burned 4 million. Around 4 million token to fix these Shift things. As you can see, I talked a little bit, and one thing I don't talk about is that this agent thing, the whole like agentic engineering won't replace your work, because there are plenty things to do here. A lot about agentic managing this hyperactive junior engineer who is really motivated but can go into rabbit holes, into loops that you need to break it out. But it's really good. So good that it's pumping dopamine every time you do a prompt, and it's really hard to go into bed. You can ask my wife, actually, that why are you there 2 a.m. waiting for the next prompt? Because it's like actually making progress. If there would be no progress here, if you'll be stuck, it's much easier to close the lid and go and call it a day, but there is always a time. You need to make sure that you are doing boundaries here. And agentic engineering changed a lot of things, not just coding, but also how we are doing hiring here. So we stopped for 2 months because, as with everybody in the ecosystem, we doesn't know where this will lead. But now we started to again, because now we kind of understand what's happening. And it's not about take-home tests, no hard problem. You need to do any depth of expertise interview. We are interested how you communicate with the agent and what you can build with the agent. So if you want to join and apply Craft, make sure that you have a project that you can actually show for. And make sure that it's actually done with agents, because the whole interview process is actually me watching you, how you communicate with the agents. There is a survey actually in the applying form. Take it serious, because it can make the difference in your application. And everything that I told about here is just the app team, but the whole company is actually converted into AI native. A lot of interesting things happening. People team developing the whole holiday management platform. We are switching Bamboo to our own solution. They automizing the spend tracking, customer support agent automate a lot of survey, a lot of customer supporting here. Stability are writing test cases, a lot of test harnesses. They could actually write finally testing cases for the CD pipeline that we have here. They can own much more, even doing bug fixes without of your knowledge. Okay, not fully without your knowledge, but with pull request you eventually know about it. But it's really good that they don't bother you with, okay, this is a bug, can you fix it? No, they're fixing that themselves. And growth, they can also implement small features like there's an experimentation, changing the color of a button, or adding a new analytics to understand the feature better. They can do it on your own. Everything that I talked about here and even more, you can read on the Pragmatic Engineer website, because there was a blog post about us. Maybe it's behind subscription, but the first half, I think, is definitely for free. It's much more craft agents and non-engineering related, because we just saw that there is much more gain that we learned by applying AI nativeness for non-engineering people. You can see a lot of success here, but there are a lot of things from non-engineering platform here also. It was really interesting to see how I can create a normal conversation with a people team person about proxy servers and Lambda solution. It was crazy, but it happened, and it was really nice. This is the last slide, I promise. And this is a tweet that I really like it, because it's like settles down and calms down the people, because it's not about agents replacing you. It's about a co-work, a relationship with the agents. So all the things that you saw here, I could not done without the agent, but also the agent couldn't have done without me. So thank you very much. That's all I want to talk about. Hopefully still in time. If you have any question, thank you. Maybe we have time for one.
Yeah, so my question is, how do you approach situations when someone from your team, an engineer, submits a pull request without actually understanding what the agent did?
That's why we have compounding on the stand-up. But yeah, I'm really adamant that every person who got a team lead understand what's happening behind the skin. So we go back and make sure that it's understanding. That's why I wanted to have always like an executive summary. There are people who are actually like, okay, I thought that we need to improve polarization in the application. Here's the markdown file, the agent split out to me, read it. So no, that's the way what you're doing. You will read the markdown file, you will understand what's the implication to that, and you need to be able to summarize in short to me what will be the improvement in here. That means that you understand what's happening here. So no, that I don't allow pull requests that people don't understand. Really angry, actually, if somebody will do that.
Hi, great presentation. Thank you very much. I have a question. How do you switch between codecs and cloud? Do you need some different configurations, some different markdown files? I tried right now with Xcode 26.3, and codecs doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
It's opinionated. A lot of things happening. So for us, we started with ChatGPT, so codecs. So that's why we had an agent's MD in the file, which described all of the things that we have here. We need to make sure that it's short, and you can make sure that skills are used there. But Cloud is not reading the agent MD. You need the Cloud MD for that. So we have a symlink in the application, in the repo, that's actually pointing to the agent MD to making sure that you're actually following the same naming pattern that you have here. But beside that, the well-written skills, the well-written markdown files are actually all that we need. We can switch between them. You need to understand, I had a slide on it, that you need to know your agent. Cloud Code is like a San Francisco engineer on speed to want to jump on things, and you can do visionary things. But Codex is like the wise architect who is a little bit slow, at least for me. But you can trust it that it will do the things better. So you need to understand, because they trained a little bit differently. You have like a junior engineer for doing visual prototypes, and you will have a junior engineer who is really diligent and do things for it. But you need to find the thing. You need to work a lot of it. I can help you in the break if you have follow-up question. It's a much deeper topic.
For me, it's very strange because I see them exactly opposite way.
Yeah, that's very it's opinionated. That even inside the company, thinking that Codex is much faster and Cloud is much slower.
And last question, you are using Visual Studio Code, Xcode,
Terminal.
Terminal only?
Oh, Terminal. I have had
not even cloud application?
Yeah. Sorry?
Not even cloud application? Cloud
okay,
code.
So yeah, we use Cloud Desktop for like chatting. Some of the time this mind map thing was in full chatting mode. And I ask always to create a markdown file so I can teleport the whole conversation into Cloud Code, but we are using Terminal. I mean, there is no strict policy. What you need to use is better to use craft agents, because then you can give feedback about how it's working. But everybody is feel free to use. I'm using Codex with basic Terminal thing and splitting thing. There was like, I don't know, you know, this bell curve of being wise because of junior. You complicate things, and after the other thing, you need to just use simple things. So I had this in the first week. Okay, like we are using Terminal, now I will use Tmux with like item and notification and intercession things, etc. But eventually, no, I will use just Terminal, all the things. So yeah, Terminal. So
yes, thank you, Peter, for your presentation. Sorry, I'm here. So do you have experience of programming agents? Like, have you been using some API for that, or you just ask some, I don't know, agent to?
Yeah, sure. I try to be mindful with the time, so I skipped a lot of small parts in the presentation. But we developed an agent for the craft application that was released in November. We we used a lot of knowledge, like we developed our own tools or protocol, how to use tool calling, how to manage context management, caching, with our own master endpoint, how to make sure that your threads will stay on device, how to make sure that the context management will be good, a lot of things there. So yeah, basically we did that. And with Craft Agents, we are building on this basic building block where Cloud and Codex already developed, like how to call tools, how to make caching much efficient, etc. But we still building a lot of extra tools, how to make the agents better. That's why I mentioned that Craft Agents is not like Cloud Code. It helps you a little bit more because you know that you need to always start with planning. There are a lot of tool calls that actually failing in Cloud Code. For example, the linear MCP has a token limitation of, I think I would just slap on my belly, 40,000 token maybe. So you cannot gather all of the linear tickets that you have here, but in Cloud Agents can, because we added another wrapper between you and the linear MCP to make sure that you can actually read all the tickets, because it's something that we constantly use.
And sorry, extra question, like how they are managed? I mean, if you have, let's say, like Kubernetes, yeah, like you have Docker, you see like containers, but so how in case of agents, how is it done? You mentioned in case of Cloud Code, it's kind of like using command line interface, yeah, and that's it. But there is some kind of visualization or program for like managing those agents?
In the Craft application?
Yeah, for instance. Yeah.
The Craft application is like have the client-side SDK that you can use. It's using a basic socket with a JSON communication. All of the knowledge is on the backend side. We're using Mastra, Mastra like a Warsaw, build this AI SDK tool, which is really helpful. It was going rocketing in January. Everybody was using that. And Mastra was a wrapper around it that help you to simplify all of the things that you need to know that an agent needs to do. So the agents need to do two things: be in a loop and be able to call tools. Everything is kind of managed by the SDK, but we wrote a lot of things. So we're using AWS with a EC2 cluster that is constantly running and managing the thing. There is load balancing before it. I don't know which part you are interested more in it. We can do it in the breaks if you want, but this is like the basic answer for that.
Hey, so my question is that we all aware that the LLMs were trained on data that were not necessarily meant to be used for training, like YouTube videos that people were not aware that they will be used for training, and many other stuff that some might say that they were actually stolen for the training. So obviously when you are using Codex or Cloud Code, they claim that they do not use the data for training, but this is a matter of some kind of a trust between us and them, being really big guys and maybe not necessarily, feeling the trust. So what's your take on this one? Like, do you see this as a potential problem in the future, or you never thought of this, that they will actually use whatever prompts you send them, whatever the tool the reading tool used, and stuff like that?
Okay. If I'm getting right, am I relieved or like okay with my code sent to the services?
Yeah.
I mean, all I can do around here is actually turning off train on my data around here. But eventually, like, when working with open source, that's like completely fine. But yeah, that's also a decision that your company need to make, that it's okay for you. The things now, that's basically, it's not, you cannot steal it. And it's important, it's actually how you are developing product. And that was a really important slide, and thank you for reminding that nowadays that you are not coding, the most important skill that you have is to have a business domain understanding, able to prioritize your work, and have a taste on what actually you are doing, because you're not doing coding anymore, you are changing the shape of the code that you're doing, and that you cannot be stolen for now, unless they join to my Neuralink and streaming for my data, for my brain. So yeah, on the other side, with the licensing thing, we try to, the open source thing is kind of our way to give back to the community. With this whole ALK Swift, we went through the painful thing to actually including the license, making sure all of the files referencing the old ELK Java SDK. So we are trying to be in the white field here, and everything is all right. I hope this is answering your question. Thank you.